Well, here we are, and it's AD 29. We're event 43, Jesus' events of his life, his public ministry on earth. And this particular event is found in Matthew 15:32 through 39, and Mark 8:1 through 9. And I think it's really interesting because a lot of people think, well, they get confused between the feeding of the 5,000 and the feeding of 4,000. They were probably one event, but it's not at all the case. Not only is the number different of the people that were fed, the number of fish is different. It just says many or a few fish, and the number of loaves of bread are different as well. The place where they're to be served is different, and the conversation between Jesus and the disciples was different. The first feeding of the 5,000 is found in 3 Gospels, feeding of 4,000 only in 2 Gospels, but the feeding of the 5,000 and the 4,000 are both found in Matthew and Mark. So this is a different feeding altogether, and we have a totally different narrative on Jesus' part. He calls his disciples together, and he says, I won't send them away. They've been with me for 3 days. They've had nothing to eat. I'm afraid if I send them away, they'll faint on the way as they're leaving. And he asks how many fish and loaves do they have. They say 7 loaves and a few fish. And he starts to break the food down and feeds all of the people. They ate and they were satisfied, and they picked up not 12 baskets but 7 baskets. So we find a totally different count of the number of baskets. Now remember, these were not little small offering type baskets. These were large hampers, and the pieces that they picked up were far greater than what they started with. And also at the end of this particular feeding, they got into a boat and went off to another place. So we find a lot of differences between the feeding of the 5,000 and the feeding of 4,000. But in both cases, Jesus felt compassion for people. Aren't you glad to know that he has compassion for those people on the Bahamas, those people along the shorelines between Florida and North Carolina? He has compassion for people. He cares about the pain and suffering that they go through, even down to the hunger that they might have. Aren't you glad also that he was the one that suggested we need to feed them? He knows our needs. He may not always fulfill all of your wants, but he will fulfill all your needs. And I think it's extremely important for us to remember that Jesus likes everything organized. He had the people sit down. He passed to the disciples in turn passed on to the people. He likes organization. He likes things done decently and in order. And I think we can learn a lot from his ministry as to organization and planning and being sure that we do things decently and in order so that the job gets done. Well, I'm going to keep today's devotion short as I'm traveling back and forth between Simpson and Simpsonville and Tryon. We're continuing our prayers for all of those in the path of the storm. For most of you know exactly where Tryon is, but Tryon is almost as far away from the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina as you can get. So we're not anticipating anything more than very light winds and maybe a ½ an inch of rain. But I hope that you'll be in prayer for those in Charleston and Myrtle Beach and those up and down the coast, even the northern part of Florida are experiencing wind and waves, and the surge is a real problem for flooding in a lot of low-lying areas. So I hope you'll continue to pray for all of those people in the path of the storm. And also hope that you'll remember to pray for all of those in the Bahamas. From the looks of some of the newsreels, it'll be years and years before the Bahamas recover from this storm, particularly Grand Bahama and some of the surrounding islands. These people didn't have much to start with, and they have even less now, and the hotels and all of the different places of tourism will suffer for years as a result of this devastating storm. So hope that you'll remember to pray for them. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.